Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I want to bring to you guys a quick little topic about adapting to sell. Now, we've learned that people want to do business with people they feel comfortable with. We need to become adaptable. We need to change the way we are in order to get people to feel comfortable with us. We need to become like chameleons. You guys know what chameleons are? It's a little lizard that changes colors based on its environment and background. In other words, if it's on a green leaf, it'll change its colors to green leaf. In selling, we need to be like chameleons. We need to be changing our colors constantly to fit the personality and the style and the traits of a prospect. Chameleon selling is simply interacting with people in a way that they feel comfortable. To be a good chameleon, you've got to be asking yourself, what do I need to do? What do I need to say? How do I need to look? How do I need to react? In a way that will make my prospect, my customer, my client feel comfortable with me. You see a chameleon in selling, you got to be willing to change every day. One thing you need to change sometimes is the way you appear. Are you dressed in a way that's going to make them feel comfortable, or are you overdressed, or are you underdressed? You see, I'm always overdressed, but if I walk into somewhere where I'm a little overdressed, I'll strip down, or I'll loosen my tie. But sometimes, are you in a three-piece suit when you're showing a farm, right? You go out and they're dressed in a cowboy boots and walking through the dirt. Do you think they feel comfortable with you? I've never really felt awkward, walking through dirt in a suit. And if they say something, I'll be like, don't worry about it, man. This is just the uniform. That's the script I use. But I never feel like the prospect will think I'm trying too harder to sell them. They've seen me, or they've seen presented. This is just how it's going to be from now on. And sometimes they'll say, well, James, next time show up in a t-shirt. And next time I'll show up in a t-shirt with a tie on it. Just kind of play with it. But I want people to know that I know, the farms. If I'm dressed like a farm, if I'm in a 15-story building, you want to be dressed like you're a professional real estate agent. But I am always sharp and dressed for the situation, and they'll feel a little more confident that we know what we're doing. I don't want to overdress, but I always do that. Even if it's a $100,000, $200,000 mobile home, I'm dressed. And I may or may not make them feel uncomfortable, but I want them to know I'm taking this serious at every level. I don't like it when other real estate agents are not suited up. When they walk into an open house with their buyer and they're dressed casual, even if it's my buddy, this is how it always is. And once it's if you are always dressed like this, then it's not a big deal. If you're dressed up once in a while like this, then it is. But once they get to know you, they'll see, okay, this is always how he's dressed. You've got to match the environment as a professional, and then match them as the casual conversation. If they're formal conversations, then be formal. Adjust your mannerisms, adjust your personality type a little bit to be yourself, but speak to them on their level, whether it's upper or lower. It has to do with tone of voice. You ever notice how every family has their own style? Like if you look at Marky Mark or Mark Wahlberg, all of them sound the same. Or the Baldwins, they all sound the same. Like the actors, they have the same tonal quality to their voice. You need to become a part of their family. Emulate the way that they talk. If they're loud, you be loud. If they're soft-spoken, you be soft-spoken. Now, I'm not saying if they have a thick, accent that you walk in there and be like, hi, y'all, I want to sell your house. They'll be like, this isn't how he talks. But you can do subtleties where you just, keep it close but not obvious. People want to do business with people who are like them, who look like them, who sound like them. That's why, I have a lot of trouble with certain cultures and nationalities, because I don't look like them and I don't talk like them. And you'll know, if you're in this business long enough, you'll be like, I'm not going to work with this specific demographic, because they always go with their own kind, right? That's what it is, because they feel comfortable. You got to look at it from their vantage point, not from ours. It's not important what we think, it's what the prospect thinks. And I've crossed that cultural divide, but it wasn't easy. You know, you have to have something they want, and then you can be professional. If they have nothing you want, it's going to be hard to prove to them that they should want you. Don't try to outthink them. Don't try to determine what should concern them. Find out what their concerns are, and you be concerned about them as well. Understand your prospect from their perspective, from their vantage point. You know, what might be a huge deal to them might be nothing to you. First time buyers especially. They make a big deal out of one thing where you say, no, that's not the big deal this one is, and they don't think twice about it. Maybe you can take a chance to see where they're living. That's the best insight into how you can fit into their rapport or adaptation. You can see their present property, and when you get to like the living room or the master bedroom, you can point out this room and say, how much bigger would you like to have your next master bedroom be? Or they might say they want to be in a nice neighborhood, and your impression of a nice neighborhood is not the same as their impression as a nice neighborhood, right? What you say is a nice neighborhood and what they say is a nice neighborhood could be completely different, right? People's value systems are different than ours. What's neat and tidy and safe to one family could be completely different to another, right? And so you'll walk into a presentation thinking that, oh my gosh, this place is a ghetto, but then you don't know they're actually living in a worse ghetto and they're stepping it up. And to you, you're thinking that, and so you talk about the area, or you say, well, this might not be a walkable. So you've got to understand, you know, and think to them, perhaps maybe the deposit might think, you know, $1,000 is a lot of money, and you think, no, that's not enough. So you've got to understand from their value system and adapt to their point of view, and you'll be far more successful with the prospects that you meet. The next area of adaptability or adaptation is the personality style. There's a lot of social media out there talking social media styles, and you know, everybody wants to be a psychologist and try to understand with mirror and matching and rapporting and NLP. But you got to understand how the prospect is. You can use those, what's those, driver analytical, you know the one, it's like a test. It's, I forgot the name of the test, but you want to know what kind of people are there. Are they visual? Are they artists? It's hard enough to be a salesperson than to try to understand, you know, the Freudian angles of sales. Maybe you shouldn't even try. Maybe you should just be their friend. What if you went into, you know, into a friendship, your best friend who is now, would you have gone in there and be like, oh, they're a driver, I don't think we can match up, right? A disc driver or something, I don't know that, right? But they are, you know, different personality styles, and you think that you figured out their personality style and then that's how it should be. Maybe they're not. You know, maybe you perceive it wrong. All of a sudden you're thinking they're a driver, when in fact it wasn't that they have to be a driver because the wife's the driver, right? The driven one, the one who, you know, aggressive. So try not to avoid ego clashes by emulating a style or becoming a driver with them, because then you'll be clashing. Just don't be too preoccupied with trying to figure out personality styles and types. Just befriend them and you'll end up being all right. See the world through the other person's eyes and they will respect. So you've got to make everything for the customer happy. Just be of service. You know, you go into a restaurant and the waiter is a personality style, you don't care. You just like, serve me, right? Just be of service and that's it. But you have to understand though, the ultimate goal is not to make a sale. You got to make a customer happy. Without a customer, you can't sell a home. Without a listing, you can't sell a property. So the trick is to get your buyer or your seller to develop a relationship and find people who trust your recommendation, who respect your opinion. People who will place their listing in your hands, their biggest investment for you to be their agent because they're comfortable with you, not because you're trying to sell them on something. That you care about what their outcome is and you want to earn their trust and respect through your professionalism. So you be yourself, be professional, but be yourself. And if whatever attracted you to the same table, that you can nurse that attraction to maintain it, if they liked your style, if they liked your phone conversation, maybe all you got in there for was quoting them too high of a price for the sale of their property, and that was it. So now you're going to be, having an uphill battle to try to adapt to someone that they like and trust enough after you told them that it was worth 500,000 when it was truly 400, and because you just spit it out of your mouth, now you are the person who took $100,000 from them. You're not the agent who got them top dollar. And so another agent's going to come in there and say, it's worth 400,000. And now that next agent's going to have a hard time convincing them that it's not 500. So either you win the listing and it never sells, or you lose the listing and the other agent always has to kind of, compete with what if, right? And hopefully they get that listing and they sell it for, 420,000, and then the homeowner is going to think they're the hero and that you were a piece of crap for lying to them about the price in the first place. Be adaptable. Be yourself, but be a chameleon. Blend in with the background, but stand out just enough. This day and age, this social presence, this emphasis that we have on becoming bigger than we are, bigger in life, by becoming this persona. Everybody now has to be a celebrity. You need to be a local celebrity. And I talked about it last night when I was outdoor knocking. The evolution in the real estate business is going to be one where you have to become more than just an agent. You might actually have to become partly an electrician, partly an inspector, partly an appraiser, partly connected to housekeeping, partly connected to carpet cleaning. That you might actually have to have a team or be part of a team, not like be a team, but that have more than just services. So for example, that you have access to a painter, right? But if you're a one-person show, is it out of the realm of possibility that in order for someone to become a real estate agent in 2030, that they wear many hats? That you might actually have to take a listing and then the next day show up and handle the landscaping, and then the next day paint a room. And you're thinking to yourself, hell no, that's what team members are for. But what would happen if you went into a listing presentation? Here's the scenario, because it just happened about 4 months ago. What would happen if this was the scenario? You walk in and it's an elderly couple and they don't have a whole lot of money to fix the place up. But when you walk in there, you're like, oh my God, this place needs paint, right? And they say they have the matching paint in the garage, but they don't have anyone to paint because then they don't have the money to do it. Who's going to paint that room? Who's going, if you see that they have a completely empty garage, but the house has a lot of stuff in it, who do you think, if they don't have any money, who do you think is going to be the one to clean out that room? Guys and gals, I don't know about you, but over the last 8 or 9 listings, I'd say 5 or 6 of them, I have physically shown up in a suit and walked out dusty and dirty with paint on my hands and like cuts on my fingers from moving furniture or climbing up a ladder. A year ago it probably started. There was a beautiful view, elderly couple, beautiful view of a nice lake. Who's gonna wipe that window down? Who's gonna wipe that window down? Can you do it? Oh, so the fancy agents will be like, just call a window washer. Well, they don't have the money. You gonna spend the money on a listing? Then do it, right? Call a window guy. Call a window guy, call a painter, call a carpet cleaner, and then all of a sudden you're $3,000 deep into the listing and the homeowner calls and says, we've decided not to sell. Where's that money gonna be recouped? I suppose the evolution of real estate would be one where you build in fees, right? That you start saying, you know what, here's my budget. I'm going to spend about $3,000 on this thing in the beginning. And if you cancel, you owe me $3,000. Fair enough? But if it sells, then it's a wash and you don't owe me the money. Fair enough? So that it gives people incentive. I mean, I went on a listing presentation yesterday where the guy goes, well, what if like we change our mind in a month into it? If you're ever in a listing appointment, note to every agent out there, if you're ever in a listing appointment and the homeowner says, what if I cancel? And then your answer is nothing. Just know that there's a 50-50 chance, 50-50 chance they're going to cancel. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to be SOL, out of luck. Because you told them there's no consequence. Oh yeah, there's no consequence to canceling. Now, and that's my script that I use. I'll say, hey, if we get into a contract with a buyer, then it's a little bit different. We can't just pull the plug on a buyer. But between you and I, yeah, you don't want to sell, you just don't sell. I'm not going to hold you to it. Where now I'm kind of changing my tune a little bit. The one I went to yesterday, I'm like, you know what? If you cancel, that would suck. Because I'm going to drop probably $1,000 and probably 24 hours in the next 10 days on yours. Besides me, this camera is really white. Besides me, is going to be my wife. So, who's also going to be working on this file. So it'd be really bad. So how do you adapt? We're talking about adaptation. How do you adapt to the mentality of the individual and make them feel comfortable, know, like, and trust you when you're telling them that here are the consequences of not knowing, liking, and trusting me? It's really hard. You've just got to be yourself, adapt to being the best agent you can be, and set the ground rules for their expectations. A lot of the problems that arise from real estate is setting up their expectations. And if you see, when we're talking about adapting, we're not talking about just you adapting to the client, but the client has to adapt to the sell. And so you've got to point out to them, here is how it happens when you decide to sell your home. And here's how they have to adapt. And a lot of times, man, you don't have any idea how many times I have listings cancel 2 weeks into the contract because it's overwhelming. And we've got to prepare. Like when you walk into the elderly person who's been in this house 30 years and nobody has visited, and then all of a sudden they've got all these people. That's overwhelming. And now they're trying to figure out where they're going to go, where it's probably easier to just go out feet first, right? So I say, you know what, I just can't. I'm just going to keep it. I'm just going to stay. If you overwhelm them, but if you teach them how to adapt, if you go into the presentation and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and you guys watch those HGTV shows like on Bravo or whatever about all those $1 million agents. Well, let me tell you, that's not the reality. The reality is we're going to come in here on day 2 or 3. We're going to come in here with a photographer. We're going to take tons of photos. And then once the photo shoot is over, I'm going to post this thing into the MLS. If you'll allow me to do an open house on Saturday and Sunday, we'll do the open house. But I know on TV that they have a parade of people, and there's this demonstration, there's a party with wine and cheese and laughter, and at the end of the party, these buildings sell out. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I've never seen that. The average days on the market right here say it's 45 days. I don't know what the average days on the market is for some of these HGTV shows. Is it 4 or 5 hours? I don't know. Is that real? We don't know nowadays, right? How can it be that your neighborhood takes 45 days and the New York penthouse takes 4 or 5 hours and a couple bottles of champagne? So this isn't that, right? This isn't. Our market says it's going to be this price, so we're telling them to adapt, right? Here's the average price. Here's the average length of time, so that in their mind they're adapting to the possibility that this might take more than a day. Mr. and Mrs. And I tell people all this all the time. They're like, well, we don't want to be out on the street. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, it takes, and so they're adapting. They're trying to force adaptation by thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to be out on the streets. Where you have to implement a new DNA and say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, here are the numbers based on the property values, and the average price home is 500,000, and the average price home, or the average days on market, is 45 days. The average price is 500,000. Now, that's for the average house, average price. Would you say your home is average? No homeowner says their home is average, right? Oh, we're the greatest. So if they say, we got the greatest house, say, well, then it's above average. And clearly you're not listing it for 500,000, right? We're going to go out at like 520. So that's also above average, right? So you got an above average house and above average price. What do you think is going to happen to the days on the market? It's going to go above average. So if the average days on the market is 45, and you're going above that, we can probably guarantee 60, maybe 90 days, depending on, the activity level. So please don't for a second think that you're going to be out on the streets. That's not going to happen. I'm hoping that we get a buyer who pays your price within 45 days. And by that time, you'll have already found a place. And again, that was the presentation I went on yesterday, where she goes, oh, I don't want to move into a bad area, da-da-da. I'm like, don't worry about it. You've already kind of been looking, but once we put this house on the market, you're going to be definitely motivated, and you're going to find something that you like. Right now, you're just dabbling in it. Once you get a sign in the yard, we'll do it. And so I'm planting these adaptation dialogue in their head so that they don't feel tremendous discomfort when change arrives. Because although we're in real estate and maybe we're salespeople, or we do this, hustle, or whatever industry we're in, if you're watching this, it's because you like change, right? That you want to adapt, that you want to grow. But the majority of people out there on this planet that aren't entrepreneurial or forward thinking are pretty cool with where they're at, and buying their house and staying there happily ever after, and dying and going out feet first without ever worrying about exposure or travel or greatness or being the best of the best. They're just like, I'm gonna raise my family and I'm happy. And so people are people, and everyone's different. Are you adaptable to become great at what you do by showing them that you are great at what you do, by having conversations with them about how great it would be if I could help them? Always with the expectation that you're a service, that you're providing a valuable service to the individual, and don't worry about adapting. All right. Anyhow, thanks. Hey, by the way, coaching, one-on-one coaching, very limited. If you guys are interested in one-on-one coaching, find me. We'll have a couple-minute conversation on the on that topic. Get to work.
He's gonna start